Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a popular request. One of you pointed out, I thought very perspicaciously, that some conductors, they do like a big box, and then you get all these little boxes, or they record for several labels, and there are all these little mini boxes of things coming out. And one of those conductors, who you pointed out to me, where that happened, was Nicholas Harnoncourt. And I did a talk, which was very well received by you all, on the Warner sort of sample box that was like the Art of Harnoncourt or something. I don't know. It was a very good box. It was very well put together. And you mentioned that there were all these other boxes that were popping up, and would I talk about a couple of them? Because after all, we're not going to get a Harnoncourt big box from Warner. I mean, silly me. Probably show up next week. There is a big Harnoncourt box from Sony with all of the Deutsche Harmonie Mundi BMG stuff in it, but that was issued years ago. And from that, we have this fabulous 16 CD object. The Nicholas Harnoncourt Conducts Sacred Masterworks, and it's got all kinds of stuff in here. And let me tell you, it is weird. It is the Harnoncourt at his Harnoncourtiest. It really is. It has some fabulous things and some absolutely perverse things. And there's no way to tell which you're going to get. It's quite the random assortment. So we have to go through it, and we can talk about it item by item. But I want to make a general comment about Harnoncourt's sacred music recordings. One of the fascinating things about him is that even though he is theoretically a period instrument guy, as I've said many times, he is really a romantic, egomaniacal, crazy guy. That's really what he was. And when it comes to sacred music, he's very much like Herbert von Karajan, of all people. Karajan had that sort of dripping, sanctimonious, oleaginous, legato way with sacred music, because he felt that the smoother it was, and the slower it was, and the heavier it was, the more spiritual it had to be. Well, Harnoncourt is a little bit like that. He tends to do things, when he's of a spiritual bent, in a very legato, smooth, sticky kind of way. And it sounds even weirder when it's placed in the context of the period instrument aesthetic, which is based on clipped accents, feminine endings, sharp sforzandi, tiny forces. But he still does that sort of big, heavy, slimy, oily, greasy Germanic approach to sacred music, as often as not. Sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he does. And it's really weird. But Karajan is sort of the closest I can think of, to sort of, contextualize Harnoncourt's approach to this stuff. He would claim, I'm sure, that this was based on his study of Baroque-era musical rhetoric, which he attempts to impose on instrumental music by distorting it in various ways. Sometimes it works fabulously well. I mean, Harnoncourt was a genius. Don't get me wrong. One of the great 20th century conductors, and possibly the most recorded, almost of all of them. Unbelievable how much he did over the range of repertoire that he did it. But boy, it could be strange. And we have several examples of it in this box, which is quite inexpensive and still available. And it's like really a good deal, but ooh, well. So first we get some Bach cantata remakes. Let's start on CDs 1 and 2. We get, let's see, Schwingt freudig euch empor. Now that one's a real toe tapper, trust me. And then we get Ach wie flüchtig, ach wie nichtig. That one is not a toe tapper, trust me. And then we get Wachet auf, ruf uns die Stimme. Well, we all know that. That one's lovely. And then we get Nun komm der Haydn Highland, another very popular one. And finally, Wir danken dir Gott, wir danken dir Gott, wir danken dir Gott, wir danken dir Gott. Got stuck there, didn't I? It's Wir danken dir Gott, wir danken dir. Which means, of course, we thank you, God. We thank you. We really thank you. We thank you tremendously. And that one is definitely a lively one. It's a nice selection. I like Harnoncourt's Bach generally because I think Bach could use the perversity that he sometimes brings to it. Bach can be very, very sort of grim and foursquare and austere. And with Harnoncourt, well, he puts a little fun back into Bach, I think. Now, I'm not sure that you want fun in Ach wie flüchtig, ach wie nichtig. I mean, flüchtig, yes, it has an umlaut. That's not exactly a fun cantata, but the approach gives the music, I think, an unusual degree of interest. So I'm fine with his Bach. And then we get the Bach Christmas Oratorio. I've always liked Harnoncourt's Christmas Oratorios. This was his second recording of it. And I think, at least the second recording of it, you never really know, for the same reason I like the rest of his Bach, because it just seems to me to have a tremendous amount of personality in music that really, really needs it. And I'm not saying that the music wouldn't have it otherwise. It's in the music, obviously. He's not imposing it from without. Rather, he's activating what is already there. And I think that's just very, very good. Then we get Handel's Messiah. Oh, dear. You see, just as much as Harnoncourt was a wonderful Bach conductor, he was a pretty dismal Handel conductor for the most part. And he did quite a bit of it. But his Handel oratorios, well, first of all, his Handel oratorios were never going to get time of day because he was competing with the English people. And the English people were never going to admit that Harnoncourt might do something better than their local forces would do it. But in this case, they happen to be right, I have to say. I mean, not in the instrumental music, the orchestral works by Handel or whatever, but in these oratorios, Harnoncourt is just, the strangeness is, I mean, just listen to the Hallelujah chorus of this Messiah. It is so laid back. It is so uncelebratory. Now, it builds to a roof-raising conclusion, which is just marvelous. But why? Why give us no clue that that's where it's going? I mean, I understand the concept. That's the thing about Harnoncourt. You always understand the concept, but you don't want to be preached at. You just want him to play the music as well as possible. And this Messiah has, for every wonderful moment, there are two or three mannered or affected moments. And it's just not a great Messiah as a result. Oh, the soloists are quite fine. I mean, it's Christine Schaeffer and Anna Larson and Michael Schade and Gerard Findlay. And really, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the cast. He just has to leave them alone and let them do their thing. I mean, they probably know the piece better than he does anyway. I don't know. Next, Haydn, Die Schöpfung, the creation. Oh, my goodness. What a mess. Harnoncourt's Haydn creations are just bad. The first one was not very good, the one on Teldec, and this one is no better. It really isn't. I don't understand why he just doesn't let it rip, which is what Haydn needs. Haydn needs rippedness. It needs riposity. It needs ripoliciousness. Whatever. You gotta be exciting and direct and forceful and colorful. Sure. I mean, Harnoncourt's very good at the imitation stuff in part two. The bugs and the deer and the giant flatulent beast thing. And I mean, he does all that stuff very well. He really does. But elsewhere, the choruses, these grand, glorious Handelian choruses, where he's always tailoring the endings, tapering things off. Everything that's supposed to end with the most rousing and joyous noise has a diminuendo. It's perverse. It's just plain perverse. And the singers are not great either. The singers, well, Dorothea Röschmann. Röschmann is the best thing on there. She's got all three female roles, and she's wonderful. But Michael Schade and Christian Gerhaher. Oh, Gerhaher's terrible, and Michael Schade is just shouting all the time, and they're just not very, very effective at all. And Gerhaher is just too small voiced for the part. Frankly, I mean, in my humble opinion, he should stick to leader. This is not a leader-like role. So no. Failure. No good. Mozart Requiem. Great. It's a wonderful Mozart Requiem. See, there you go. You never know with Harnoncourt. It doesn't have any of the defects that the Haydn had. Why? I can't tell you. Maybe he woke up on the other side of the bed that day, and so it was wonderful. It's a very, very, very good Mozart Requiem. Unfortunately, I don't care about the Mozart Requiem because I really don't think it's by Mozart, or a lot of it isn't by Mozart. It just sounds to me patchy and disconnected, and I've never enjoyed it. But that's me. I know I'm in a minority because all of you want me to do a Mozart Requiem talk, and you all love the Mozart Requiem, and I just can't do it. At least not right now. I could do it, but it's like way down on my list because the piece just doesn't do it. But this is a wonderful performance. It truly is. First rate, with another great cast. I mean, Christine Schaefer, Bernarda Fink. Who else is there? Kurt, what's his name here? Kurt Streit and Gerald Findlay, again, with the Arnold Schoenberg Choir and Concentus Musicus Wien. It's quite fine. Christ on the Mount of Olives by Beethoven, the world's dullest oratorio. Well, when you do it the way Harnoncourt does it, it isn't so dull. That's one of those things where it's really good to give it the treatment, if you know what I mean. It's a rather effective performance, I would say, of one of Beethoven's least interesting pieces. Now, I know some of you will say, no, we love it. It's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. I don't care what you think. I'm talking about the judgment of posterity. According to the judgment of posterity, Christ on the Mount of Olives is a loser. You may love it. I may love it. But history has decided, and we are not going to change its opinion. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not a good piece. I'm not saying that people shouldn't like it if they like it. And this is a fun performance of it, actually. I was listening to it a couple days ago, and thank God it's not very long. That's the wonderful thing about it. It's actually pretty short. I mean, Christ didn't have that much to do on the Mount of Olives, thank goodness, and he got it done rather quickly. So this is a very, very good performance of it, and that's fine with me. And then we have the Missa Solemnis. Now, this is late Harnoncourt. It's one of the last things he ever did. And Bob Levine, when he reviewed it for ClassicsToday.com, which you can go and read over at ClassicsToday.com, gave it a 10/10. He thought it was wonderful. And what he particularly liked about it was precisely the things that make me crazy in some of these other pieces, which is that excess of devotion, that softness. But for some reason, I see Bob's point, because the Missa Solemnis is a weird thing anyway, and it's full of rough edges. And you can smooth them over without really diminishing the impact of the whole. I mean, smooth them over a little. I don't mean, make them go away entirely. But it is a very inward performance, a very sensitive performance, and it's very beautiful. It's wonderfully sung. I mean, who are the soloists here? It's Laura Aiken and Bernarda Fink and Johannes, who's this? Johannes something or other, and somebody. Yes, the print is so tiny. I could probably look it up here. Wait a minute. Let me see if it's easier to see here. No, it's not easier to see here. They don't care at all. Oh, yeah, it's a little bit easier. Hang on 1 minute. Let me just get this out here. You do get a booklet. It only has a track listing, though. It doesn't tell you anything about the works. And, of course, there are no texts, but we all know the text of the Mass. Anyway, there we go. Johannes Chum, Vum, whatever his name is. And Ruben Droy. Why do they do this to me? Why can't they all be named John Smith? I mean, really? Or the equivalent, whatever country or language they're from. I mean, how many contortions of the English language, of the alphabet, the Greek alphabet, whatever alphabet can there possibly be? I can't deal with it. It's a very, very personal but extraordinarily well-realized interpretation of the Missa Solemnis. So that's a good one. So what have we got here? We've got 4 discs that are good so far. The Bach, that's 4 discs of Bach. Those are all fine. Then we've got the Handel, the Haydn. Those are duds. That's 4 lousy discs. And then we've got the Mozart Requiem, which is really good, and the Beethoven. So that's 3 more good ones. Now we come to the calamity, the Verdi Requiem. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, boy. Yeah. It's a punishment. It is. It's the requiem to end all requiems. Once you've heard it, you just want to roll over and die. It is a slow, soggy, soft edge, rather like Carillons, by the way, but just worse in every respect. It is so absolutely lethargic and undramatic. And, the original notes were insane, and Harnoncourt wanted to remove the drama from the piece. Why? I mean, that's what Verdi was. That's what Verdi did. So that's what you have to do. It's like taking the lyricism out of Mozart, right? Or taking the fight out of Beethoven. I mean, you just don't do that. And this is just perverse. It really is horrible. And the singers are all too light. They're all wrong for the part. I mean, oh my goodness, they're so wrong. What is it? Let's see. It's Eva May and Bernarda Fink. She's okay. And Michael Schade and Edel Brando D'Arcangelo, and they just don't have the voices for the parts. Remember, Harnoncourt did Aida. I mean, you might say, well, the Requiem's a sacred work, so he's giving it its sacred spirituality. Well, why did he do that to Aida? It was the same thing, the same nonsense. It's Verdi with all of the excitement and virility just sucked out of it. I mean, you won't believe the Dies Irae, right? It's thump, 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 but Dies Irae, Dies Irae, Dies Irae, yada da 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 da, thump, boom, thump, boom, thump, boom, thump, boom. Get it? It's just embarrassing. It's so bad. Ugh. Okay, then we get the Brahms German Requiem. Also not fabulous. It really isn't. First of all, the timing really makes you think it's really the quicker ones. It says 60 minutes. Well, no, it's 72. Some of the timings on here are like really bizarre. They're like really wrong. And they never did anything about it. This German Requiem, we talked about it in our big German Requiem wind-up. And it's just a mediocre German Requiem. It really is. It's another one of those soggy type performances of a work that has all of the sogginess it ever would need built right in. You don't have to emphasize it. It just naturally emerges. What you need to do is just the opposite. You need to provide rhythm and transparency and a little bit of bite and edge, and none of it is in this performance. It's not horrible. It's not as bad as the Verdi. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe because it's in German. I don't know. But it's not very good. Finally, last but not least, we get the Dvorak Stabat Mater, and that's very good. Very, very good. Harnoncourt is interesting. When he got his hands on Dvorak, he was usually very respectful. And I think it is perhaps the fact that maybe Dvorak was like, a happy-go-lucky Czech peasant. Ho, 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 give me my rake and my fork and let me go kill a chicken and, that kind of stuff. I think he sort of allowed Dvorak to have a certain, rustic edge and rawness and spontaneity and innocence that he really didn't want to offer Brahms or even Verdi for that matter, even though Dvorak and Verdi came from the same kind of background, from peasant stock, as they say in the biz. But for some reason, Dvorak almost always brought out the best in Harnoncourt. He was a wonderful Dvorak conductor. I think he just really loved the music. I mean, truly loved it. I mean, felt it, felt the way it was supposed to go, rather than imposing an aesthetic on it from without, from scholarship, from study, from approaching it, with a certain distance, an academic distance. His Dvorak just feels as natural as can be, and it's a beautiful performance of a glorious work. I keep wanting to do a talk on the Dvorak Stabat Mater because I've got like 20 of them sitting over there. And at some point I'm going to. You just have to be in a Stabat Mater mood. It's not a happy piece exactly. But boy, what a lovely work that is. And the first movement, the opening chorus, which is 20 minutes long, is one of Dvorak's greatest single movements. It's certainly his longest single movement. It's an unbelievable piece. Really is. So that's what we get. It's like 50-50, right? So we got, let's recapitulate. We've got 4 good discs of Bach, 4 bad discs of Haydn and Handel, Three good discs of Mozart and Beethoven, three bad discs of Verdi and Brahms, and two wonderful discs of Dvorak. So 16, where are we? We're almost at 8 and 8. It might be, 9 and 7 or something like that. There may be a little bit on the better side, more on the better side than on the lousy side, but this is really essentially a 50% edition. And so there you go. Are you looking for this stuff? Well, you should just know that half of it will be very, very good, and half of it will be very, very not good. I think by virtually any definition. And, my opinions about this stuff, I mean, aside from being completely objective and totally correct, on their face, actually, I think are pretty consensual. I mean, they reflect what the consensus has been about these performances, I think, pretty securely. There may be, there's always somebody who likes something. Always. I mean, that goes without saying. And especially today with criticism being what it is and everybody, blogging away, it's very hard to find any general opinion. But there are critics in the world who I respect and who I know what their opinions are. And also the people who write for classics today, who I think are excellent judges of these things. And I think this is a pretty good general overview of what you're getting in this box. And it's a very mixed bag, and you should just be aware of that. So keep on listening, folks. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.